actually wrote a book called Make It Count.
Nice.
That the kind of the core principle of the book is legacy focused leadership, which to me just means leading with legacy in mind. You're making decisions today that are going to not just make a difference today, not just for the result you're going to get today or tomorrow or next week, but for the result that you're going to get 100 years from now, the ripple effect, the butterfly effect. And so for me, legacy is about the impact you make on people after you're gone. It has nothing to do with money. It doesn't have to do with a monument that you had named after you, or your name on the football stadium because you were so great, or because you donated the money to build the stadium. That's not legacy. Maybe that factors into it for some people and that matters to them, but to me, at its core, legacy is the impact that you continue to make on people after they're gone.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new edition of the None of Your Business podcast. Sean and Lacey with you. Full complement today. I got Lacey back in the co-host chair. Super excited to be interviewing today someone that is going to be different than a lot of our normal guests, but who really is helping tons of people. Still the same vein of reaching more people, making an even bigger impact, and creating the lifestyle that they deserve. And he has a story to tell. I've been a fan, a sideline fan, watching on social media, and this gentleman was saying that he wanted to jump on some podcasts, and he had some parts of his life, some stories to share,
We love a
some
good story
inspiration to
too.
give. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, let's do it. Let's get you on the None of Your Business podcast, and let's see how it goes. So I love this. Let's bring in Mr. Red, White, and Blue, Hunter Blue. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? How are you? Good to be
We
on
are
today.
we're fantastic, and we're super stoked to have you, and we're super stoked to learn from you today. We always begin with the same question, and I have a feeling that your answer to this question is going to be super enlightening and inspiring. You know, if people are checking you out on social media, hearing you speak, seeing you appear at different conferences and retreats, it's easy to sometimes place to the person on the screen or to the person on the stage this false identity that we sort of create in our minds. Like, well, look, it's Hunter. Of course he's successful because, it's Hunter. I wish I could be like Hunter, and then all these stories, right? But my parents aren't helping me. My wife isn't helping with the job, or all of these things. And what we have found is that our guests so far, none of them have ever said, yeah, I just it was my dad's company and I just took it over. I'm just like,
Silver
that's how
spoon.
I got here.
Yeah.
We'd love to start with a little bit of your journey. And it's not really a highlight film. It's actually somewhat of a low light film. What are some of the obstacles, the pitfalls that you've had to navigate, and some of the lessons that you've learned to become Hunter Blue?
Yeah, I always kind of joke around and tell people that my family was poor enough that we couldn't even afford to have grilled cheese. We only had one piece of bread, so it was called cheese toast, and not a grilled cheese. But no,
Yeah.
we weren't that poor, man. We were definitely middle class, probably lower middle class. My parents tried hard; they did the best they could, but we certainly didn't have a lot of money. So growing up for me, it was always me being embarrassed kind of by our situation. Like, not one time of all my girlfriends did I have someone come over to the house. We lived in like a double wide trailer that was falling apart, had mold in it, hole in the roof. And just, it was embarrassing when I was a kid. We had an old, if you know what an Astro van is, we had an
Oh yeah.
old falling apart Astro van. Didn't have heater air in it. So like during the winter months, we live here in the mountains of South Carolina. My dad was pretty clever. He would save the 2 liter Pepsi bottles, and when we get done with them, we'd clean them out, and then in the mornings, me and my brother would fill them up with hot water. We did have hot water, so we'd fill them up. We'd hold on to them on the way to school to stay warm. And so, it was all right. I learned a lot. I learned to be resourceful. But about seventh grade, I was getting dropped off. That morning, I was going to school, and there's this girl that I wanted to see. and I knew she was going to be outside. And I asked my dad to drop me off down the street. There's a gas station like a quarter mile, not even a quarter mile from the school. And I asked him to drop me off there. I wanted to walk to school. And he asked why, and I just said, "Oh, I just want to do it today." And then he asked the question, "Are you embarrassed of us?" And I knew that I should say no to that because I knew what it'd mean for my rear end if I said yes, I am embarrassed of the family or our situation. So I said no. And I just kind of like stewed on it all day long. I was frustrated and I was asking myself, am I embarrassed of our situation? And that day I got dropped off by the school bus. I lived on a dead end road. And so I was walking to our house. I got halfway home, going up a hill, kind of curvy hill. I usually share the picture when I'm speaking on stage of where I was exactly in this moment. I stopped in the middle of the road walking home, and I just thought to myself, you know what? I am embarrassed and my life is going to be different. And so since then, I've committed to being against average. That's kind of like our just do it for our mastermind revolt is I want to be against average in all areas of life and health and wealth and faith and growth, relationships and legacy. I want to be different. I want to be more than average. I want to be great. I want to chase greatness. And it wasn't even that I was embarrassed of my parents or just embarrassed of the house or embarrassed of the car. I was truly embarrassed that we were just okay with it. We were content with
Mm,
just being average or less than average. And so for me, moving from that to what I thought was going to make me more than average and that next big step in life and help me create a legacy of my own was going into the Marine Corps after high school. And I did that for 6 years. And then I went to the fire department and I did that as a firefighter EMT for 5 years. And I just had, I was just real ambitious. I wanted to be a millionaire by 30. I told everybody I knew that I'm going to be a millionaire by 30. And I realized pretty quick, making $24,000 a year at the fire department, I was not going to be a millionaire by 30.
right.
Um, Even when I went and did more training, I got my EMT certification. I went to the big city fire department. I got a huge raise to $34,000 a year. So I was just crushing it, man. Like endless rolls at Texas Roadhouse. We were just killing it.
Yeah.
Uh, but I realized pretty quick that that wasn't going to get it done. So I started all kind of side hustles. I was buying and flipping cars and boats and trailers and just anything you could imagine that I could make money on, and I was pretty good at it. But after a few years, you deal with people on Craigslist. And this was before Facebook Marketplace. You just get tired of people, and it's like, okay, at this point, I'm making really good money, like more money than I do at the fire department. I was saving good money, but I'm trading my time for money because I'm having to run around and meet all these people and I'm having to list it and deal with 28 knuckleheads to sell something for $2,000 and make $500. It just wasn't worth my time anymore. So I started, a, a hauling, it was called Upstate Hauling and Delivery. So really a moving business. I did that for about 2 years. And again, kind of the same thing. Like I got it to the point where other people started doing the moving but just didn't feel like that was going to get me all the way there. So I finally left the fire department and started a marketing agency, and that led me into the
Mm.
roofing industry. A couple of my first clients were roofers, and I had this bright idea to start a roofing company as a case study. I didn't know anything about roofing at all, like at all. And I still jokingly but seriously tell people now I still don't know that much about roofing. I just hire really good people. But started Cornerstone, and we've continued to grow that. Now it does multiple eight figures a year. And you guys probably know we own roofing.com and one of the bigger conferences in the space, RoofCon, a couple other assets. We have an app with 82,000 users. So pretty cool thing to not know a ton about roofing, but just be able to build the right team and kind of build a community. So it's been a fun ride so far.
Mm.
What an amazing story. Where in South Carolina are you?
I'm in Greenville. I'm in the upstate. I'm actually real close to the North Carolina border. If you've ever heard of Travelers Rest, that's where I'm at. Big
Mm.
Oh
metropolis
yeah.
of Travelers Rest.
Yep, yep, yep. Go ahead.
So I just like listening to your story, and it was really interesting. You said that you weren't embarrassed of your family, but you were embarrassed of the fact that they were like complacent, that they were okay with where they're at. And I can't help but notice your T-shirt. It says "Always grateful, never satisfied."
Yeah,
I can't see what it says below that for those of you that
it's
are
just our
watching.
logo.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that is your T-shirt. Okay, and I was going to ask you, was that strategically placed or is that something that you subscribe by? But tell me a little bit about what that means then, because I understand where the never satisfied part comes from, especially hearing your story. Tell me about the
Yeah.
always grateful part.
Yeah. I struggle with, folks are always making posts about, be content, be happy with what you've got. And I believe that. but I think there's a healthy balance. And for me, I just put it into this phrase, and I'm always grateful. I'm thankful for what I have. Not last night, but the night before. I know last night was supposed to be the big moon or whatever it's called. I tried to go out and see it, but we had a bunch of clouds. But I did the night before see it, and I think it was just as good. And I was out there just thinking about my life, and not to turn this into a faith thing, but just was walking down the road. It was like 1 o'clock at night, and I'm just getting stuff off my mind, and I was just kind of talking to God and just thinking how thankful I am for where I am in my life. And just thinking back to my childhood, how I grew up, the house I was in, the car I was in, the jobs that I took out of high school, the jobs that I took during high school, and what I thought was possible back then to what I know is possible now, and
Mhm.
the impact that we're able to make, and the realization that we're able to bring to so many other people. For me, that's kind of the direction my life is going. Is I'm just trying to help other people realize what's possible. It's up to them at the end of the day to do something with it. I can't force their hand, but I want to show them, like, hey, I don't care where you came from. I don't care what your backstory is. It is possible. You can do it. You're no different than this guy. I've gotten to meet a lot of uh, A-list people, through our conference, Tim Tebow and John Maxwell and Ed Milet, and all these big names. And I've gotten to build a relationship with some of them. And I've become really close with John Maxwell is a good example. I've gone on trips with him. I've brought him here to Travelers Rest to run events with me. And he's no different than me or you or anyone listening to this podcast. He just has really good intentions, and he puts really good actions behind those intentions so that he can impact people. So for me, that's kind of the shift my life has taken, and the direction I've gone in.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess I have a follow-up question to that because I mean, I subscribe to the same philosophy. And so I love what your shirt says. And I also grew up, with not a lot of money and worked really hard every day that I could. I always say I've never not had a job ever. I don't even know what I would do not working,
Yeah.
but so I'm the same way. I'm never satisfied, but I am truly grateful for the blessings that I have. But there were times in my life when I was growing up and I didn't know how to be in that space of gratitude. So what kind of, advice do you have for somebody out there that's like, well, I'm struggling with the grateful part because I feel like I don't have enough or I feel like there's so much more because I think that that's such an important component, like you said, having a balance between the two.
Oh man, such a good question. It's something I think a lot about now that I'm a dad. I have a little boy that's 4, about to be 5. I have a little girl we adopted last September that's about to be a year old, and I think about that a lot with my kids. It really like bothers me kind of because I know they're going to be in this, nice big house, big garage, big barn. We got a huge gym at our house and a pool and mountain views and just, nice stuff that I didn't have growing up. And I don't want him to be spoiled, but I want to enjoy some things that I've worked really hard for. I want to have a farm. I want to have a lake house. I want to have a plane. I want to have some of those things. But, you know, just by association, he's going to get to experience those things. So how do I humble him and show him that, hey, man, it ain't just like this. This is daddy's stuff and mommy's stuff. This isn't your stuff. You have to work for your own stuff. You have to create your own legacy. You have to have the work ethic that dad had when he was young. And so for me, and I get this question a lot from our Revolt members and people that come to our conference. I think it is just all about perspective. Like, what situation can you put those kids in, your kids in, or your nephews and nieces, or the people that you coach? What situation can you put them in to see that life ain't that bad? I don't care if you had a bad year in business. Last year, the post you saw and you commented on about me coming on the podcast, I said, hey, I want to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly. I've sold a company for $48 million. I've gotten sued for millions of dollars. I lost $1 million on our conference last year. And you start having some real self doubt, when the bad stuff starts stacking up. But it's pretty easy for me to shift my mindset on that when I go to a third world country. Next month, I'm going to Uganda to work with a couple of villages over there. I have two good buddies with two separate nonprofits, and they're doing some work over there. So we're flying over to Uganda. And I can't wait for that experience just because I know how much it's going to shake me and how much more I'm going to be just driven after I go over there. And I want my kids to see that. I don't want them to be sheltered and just see our perfect little life. I want them to see how bad it could be. And at a young age, I got to experience that because I started doing mission trips. And this
Mhm.
was stateside. You don't have to go to a third world country. You can go
Right.
downtown Atlanta. You can go downtown Greenville, where I'm at. For me, I went to New York City a couple times when I was in high school, And I saw kids at 6 years old walking the streets by themselves coming to our basketball camps just because they wanted food. And you see that and you realize, you know what? My parents still love me. Like we don't have the best situation, but they love me. They're there. They figure out how to feed us. They teach me manners and work ethic and the things, right? So
Right.
you realize pretty quickly that life ain't that bad and you have a lot to be grateful for. And that's one of the exercises we do at our retreats and our events. It's an exercise called Fulfillment 50, where we talk about the things that you need to be aware of and need to be top of mind to be fulfilled in life.
I love that.
Well, that you've dropped that a couple hints on that. I want to fill everybody in. Tell us about the retreats, your events. We'll dive into kind of some of the content, the material that you're teaching, but tell us a little bit about the retreats and the events and the work that you do for others to help to inspire them and propel them to, new heights in their businesses.
Yeah, so from a very young age, like when I was high school age, I started doing just get-togethers, like you could call it parties. And I've just always loved bringing people together and seeing people have a good time. And so when I left the fire department, I left the Marine Corps, I missed that camaraderie. I missed that brotherhood. And so we had done some retreats like for our team and the companies that I built as we started to grow the team and get a dozen employees, 2 dozen employees. But in 2019, August of 2019, actually, today's the second, so a week from today, the 9th, I held my first ever event here in Greenville, South Carolina. I was hoping for like 100 people. We had like 40, and at least half of them were my employees. So it was honestly a bust, and I was so embarrassed of it at the time. But that was the first event, and when we finished that event, had of those 20 people that weren't my employees, and even some of my employees, were coming up to me and talking about how impactful it was. And so I knew that I wanted to continue doing that. So I did a retreat right after that, and I did a retreat in Mexico the next month, and then I
Mm.
threw our first ever RoofCon. Same story. I thought we were going to have like 250 people. We had like 40 something there, and I was embarrassed. I didn't think we were going to do it again. And then people started reaching out. So we said, all right, we're going to commit to doing it again. Let's see if we can grow it this next year in 2020. And so we did. And then you guys know what happened in 2020. COVID pops up. I'm like, oh my gosh, we can't do events. Like they're not going to let us do it. We rented the NRG Center in Houston, Texas.
Wow.
So it's a pretty big deal. And we showed up, and the staff there, I don't remember what they call, I guess like event director for NRG Center was like, we really didn't think you guys were going to show up because every other event has canceled. So we're not even prepared for you. Like we're having to call all of our temp people to come in here and work it, make sure you guys are wearing masks. And we went from 40 people at that first one in 2019, November of 2019, and 10 vendors to the next year. In the middle of COVID, we had 900 attendees. I think it was
Wow.
881 attendees and 50 vendors. And then from there, we went to 2,200 and 125 vendors. And then last year, we had 3,400 attendees and 250 vendors. So it's been, a fun ride. But I really enjoy bringing people together. And then on a smaller scale, we do the retreats. I was actually doing a spreadsheet yesterday, just trying to figure out how many events we've done since that first one in August of 2019. I think it was 63 that we've done, which is like more than one a month when you do the
Yeah.
math, because it'll be 4 years in a week. So a lot of
Wow.
retreats. Typically, what we do is we'll have people fly in on a Thursday. We do one session that night, then an all day Friday, all day Saturday. Then people go out Sunday, and then in between we have member retreats. So we like have a mastermind that people join. But we've been doing these smaller retreats. We call them Revoltex. They're like our foundational retreat for years now, and we have a lot of fun with that, man. Like for years, we just did it for free. It was just completely free, but we put a lot of money and time into it, a lot of travel costs and things like that. So this January, we just started charging for it, basically just enough to make up our money on it. But love doing that. Have made a what I feel like is a pretty big impact, and we have thousands of testimonials at this point of people that have been to them. So a lot of fun, and that for me is like the lifelong mission work. I tell people all the time. They ask me what I want to do next. I plan on at some point, I don't know when, it might be 5 years, 10 years. I don't know. At some point, I plan on making an exit from the roofing space. I imagine I'll be out of roofing.com, out of our app, Rep Card, out of RoofCon and all of those things. But for me, Revolt is that lifelong thing. To me, Revolt is what Virgin is to Richard Branson. Like it's
Hmm.
what I want my legacy to be.
Man, I could go two ways with this.
I
Let
know.
me. I know. Because I'll leave the cherry pick one for you.
What's the cherry
Tell
pick
me.
one?
So who comes to these events? It's called RoofCon.
Hmm.
Is it only roofers? Is it just for roofers, or who's showing up at this?
Yeah, so the conference is mostly contractors. I mean, we have non-contractors come, probably 10% or less are non-contractors, but we've had insurance agents come, marketing agency owners come, mostly business owners, and then they'll bring their team. So we have some people bring 25, 30, 40 people from their team because it's not about roofing. We have breakout sessions that are specific to roofing, but it's really more of a leadership development conference. And that's what we give credit, to it blowing up so fast is every other event in the industry before us was just focused on how do you make more money, which is great, and we'll help you make more money too. But we wanted to focus on integrity, leadership, and legacy. How do we bring together high integrity individuals in this industry that's known for not being very high integrity, the contracting space, and make sure that those people are focused on developing as leaders? They're not complacent, they're not content, and also that they care about their legacy and what they do with their business and how they impact people in their community.
I love it. So I'm thinking I know what the cherry picked
I
one is
see.
first, but first I want to say kudos to you for having an event during COVID. We also still hosted all of our events during COVID, and it was a difficult task, much like probably what you faced. But we were the same way. We're not going to shut this down. We're not going to stop because we
Yeah.
had a message to get out there. So I love that you did that as well. But you've dropped the term legacy multiple times now throughout the
Yeah.
conversation. So tell me a little bit about that, because I think a lot of times when people, especially as entrepreneurs, they think legacy, they always think about their business. Oh, how do I like create a legacy through my business? Financial
Yeah.
legacy, leave money to my kids. But I imagine in your world, it's not just about that. Listening to you, so tell us like how you help people figure that out for themselves.
No, the real short for me, just the condensed version. I could go a long time on this. I actually wrote a book called Make It Count.
Nice.
That the kind of the core principle of the book is legacy focused leadership, which to me just means leading with legacy in mind. You're making decisions today that are going to not just make a difference today, not just for the result you're going to get today or tomorrow or next week, but for the result that you're going to get 100 years from now, the ripple effect, the butterfly effect. And so for me, legacy is about the impact you make on people after you're gone. It has nothing to do with money. It doesn't have to do with a monument that you had named after you, or your name on the football stadium because you were so great, or because you donated the money to build the stadium. That's not legacy. Maybe that factors into it for some people and that matters to them, but to me, at its core, legacy is the impact that you continue to make on people after they're gone.
I love that. Man, I want to talk now about the trials and tribulations. You said, we've had some losses, we've had some setbacks. The setbacks, I honestly feel like the setbacks and your ability to overcome the setbacks is what allows you, what qualifies you to be able to lead, right? To be a leader. And if you're applying your principles of leading, with legacy in mind, um, sometimes it's easy to have a setback and think like, well, woe is me, I've screwed up the,
Right.
the whole legacy. Like it's like, all this work, I've been
Take you off
stacking all of
track.
these, and,
Yeah.
and now, that everything just fell down and I'm starting over. Tell us a little bit about these defeats. I mean, you've dropped a couple of them that I don't think that, you just kind of said them in passing. I don't think anybody was like, wow, oh yeah, that reminds me of that time I lost $1 million on an event. Like, so you drop these defeats that you've had, and talk to us a little bit about those defeats, what they meant to you and what you learned.
Yeah, I'll kind of go through three of them real quick, a couple of business ones and then a personal one. And the first one, the personal one, is really what changed everything for me, and it's what led me to writing the book, Make It Count. And if you get the book, you actually see it. It's the opener to the book. When I was 24 years old, I was still working at the fire department. Um, One morning, I was in Louisville, Kentucky for a Clemson game. Go Tigers, big Clemson fan. I got woke up to a call from one of the guys at the fire department, and he let me know that my former partner at the fire department, Jordan Howard, was killed in an accident on his way into work. He was on his motorcycle coming into work one morning. A guy crossed over 4 lanes running from the cops, hit him head on, and took his life instantly. He was a Husband, he was a brand new dad to a little girl who was only 4 months old, beautiful little girl, and that shook me up hard. It was a foundational moment for me. Um, it was a foundational moment for me because I just realized that while we hear all the time people say life's short, you're not promised tomorrow, you got to make it count. You hear that all the time, but you don't realize it until it happens.
Mhm.
I lost an uncle, I lost a grandpa that I was real close to that I lived with for a stint when I was in school. But those are kind of expected, like they're older, it's coming at some point. To lose someone that was, he was only 30 years old. He was a mentor to me. He was my lieutenant at the fire department. He was someone that believed in me. And, I tell people all the time why it mattered so much to me is because while most of the guys at the fire department were hating on me nonstop because I was out here chasing this entrepreneurial dream and they thought I was going to fail and they thought I needed to focus on the fire department. And you don't think that when you think about the Marine Corps or the fire department. You think about camaraderie and we got each other's back. But there's a lot of jealousy, there's a lot of ego, and most of the guys were not like that. But Jordan
Mm.
was. He was the guy that was sitting with me in the office when I created what I thought at the time was the best logo ever for Upstate Hauling Delivery. And I just took the magnets off my toolbox last night. I was just sitting there staring at them, thinking how much of an idiot I was to think they were good. But he was there with me, supporting me. And so I made a promise in that moment to make every day count.
Yeah.
And, I wake up and I try to make every day count. So that was a personal one for me, a foundational moment that kind of led me down this road. And, to give you a timeline of how important that was to me, that was in September of 2015. September 17th is when Jordan passed. And I was just back and forth, like, oh, do I want to leave the fire department? Do I not? Like, I know I want to. I know I need to if I'm going to hit my goal that I have of being a millionaire by 30. I was 24. And that happens in September. December, I was out. I was done. I,
Wow.
I went on and I chased it because, I just knew I needed to. I had to make it count. I only got so much time. And so then fast forward a couple years, I started Cornerstone Construction, roofing company. Within 4 years, it was like 3 years and some change. We actually sold that company for 48 million to a company out of California. About a year into that, it got real ugly. It was a public company, so I got millions of dollars in cash, and then I got millions of dollars in shares. And they had a provision in my contract that was called the make whole provision. So at 1 year, if the stock dipped, they had to issue me more stock. Well, kind of unlucky for them and unlucky for me that the stock dipped a lot. The market just wasn't doing good and it went down by
Mhm.
like 2/3. So they owed me a lot of shares, the tune of about 127 million shares. And
Wow.
so it wasn't going to be real healthy for the company. They sued me to get out of it. I countersued them because I was like, hey, I did my part. And we came to a settlement. It all worked out good. I felt like it actually worked out very favorable for me. I actually got to keep all the cash that I'd gotten. I got to keep about a quarter of the shares, and I got my company back that we have today, and it's continuing to grow. So that was a really tough season because to go through a lawsuit that's worth tens of millions of dollars, people are bashing your name, saying stuff about you that's not true, and you worked so hard to build your name and your reputation and give back, and it was tough. I mean, it was the hardest season of my life for sure. I've never been like suicidal or I've never been one to drink a lot, but if I was gonna be, it would have been in that
During
time
that
of my
time.
life. There
Mhm.
was plenty of times I was like, I understand why people drink themselves to sleep. If it wasn't for my family, I probably would have. I lost a bunch of hair. I'm thinning pretty good. You see that?
That's
I'm
that
serious.
season, huh?
I'm serious. It's not even a funny joke. It is funny, but it's not. So lost a little hair during all that, and then immediately I got out of that. That was just last August that we settled. I got my company
Wow.
back. Uh, right after that, we have our event RoofCon, and so we're planning for. We went from 2,200 people this past year. We were expecting 5,000 people, and we really thought we could hit that just based off a trajectory and some of the things our sponsors were saying. We really believed it. And luckily for us, we got a hurricane about 2 weeks before the event, which is not good if you're in the roofing industry, at least for us, because all these guys are now going to work the hurricane and like, oh, we're too busy. We can't come to a conference. So we lost some people there. And then what really killed us was a hurricane hit during the event. And a hurricane isn't like a thunderstorm. It doesn't just pop up, like it's coming for a week or two before. So everybody's
Right.
like, we have a Facebook group with 25,000 members, and everybody in the group's like, oh my God, look at this hurricane. It's coming from Africa. And they're tracking it. It's coming to Orlando. And so the week before, everybody's like, I don't know if I'm coming, this hurricane. And I'm like, oh my gosh, don't do this. Please don't do this. Because we had already spent the money, to have a
Yep.
5,000 person event. We could have done it way cheaper, like almost $1 million cheaper by using the theater that the convention center had. But we thought we were going to have 5,000 and it only holds 2,600. So we spent quarter million just in AV. Like it was like a full
Wow.
blown concert. It was so nice. But the hurricane hit. We did not have 5,000. We had 3,400, and we lost over $1 million on the event. So that was a tough blow to come out of the lawsuit and be like, yes, I'm finally done. Let's go kill it. And then boom, smack again, lose $1 million on the event.
What do you say then to other people? I mean, so that's big, but people that are starting their business as a contractor and in any other thing, um, it's hard, right? And so like you understand, like they're like,
Yeah.
hey, Hunter, like
There's
there
all
was,
sorts of
yeah,
hurricanes,
there
right?
was an
They're just different
opportunity,
types of them.
right? So I
Yeah.
had to go there. So you understand it because it's hard. And so, like you said,
Hmm.
there's all kinds of things that happen. What do you tell the people that you work with that inspires them to keep going? Because are you having RoofCon again next year or this year?
Yeah, yeah,
So I
November.
mean,
Yeah.
like a lot of people would be like, well, you should have just stopped after you lost $1 million. But so many times, like people just stop when they're like right on the brink or after they have a setback. What do you say to people that have setbacks, whether they're minor or major, which is all relative, to inspire them to keep going?
Yeah, not to be all rah rah, but
Hmm.
it's not just about the money for us. When
Right.
you get the hundreds of texts and posts get tagged in posts and videos, and people 6 months after texting you saying that the event changed their life, like it ain't just about the money. Like if I was a billionaire, I'd lose $1 million every single year on it just to see the impact that it makes. But I'm not a billionaire, so it's like,
Hmm.
all right, on the business side, we got to figure this crap out because we can't afford to lose $1 million every year. But on the impact side, we preach impact over income all the time. That's one of our things. On the impact side, we're okay with it. We just got to figure out how to at least break even. I'm not trying to get rich off of an event. Um, from what I know, most of the people I know, and I know a lot of people in the event space, they don't necessarily make money on the initial event. It comes from back end sales and
Right.
masterminds and things like that. But for if we're talking other businesses, it's the same thing. You got to figure out what that common mission is. We teach a formula on common mission and coming up with it for your business. But what is something that your business can revolve around that all of your employees, all of your team members can buy into? And an example for that for my roofing company is Cornerstone Construction. And so we started a nonprofit called Cornerstone Kids, where we pour into local youth in the communities that we serve. And it started off, I took a whole team to Salt Lake City when there was only about a dozen of us. We sat around in a circle like kids, Indian style. We said, all right, what are the things that we're passionate about that we can get behind? And the couple of things that came up were underprivileged kids, homeless people, and veterans. And so we said, all right, well, let's narrow those three down to one. We came down to underprivileged kids. And so we started doing these events called Life 101. And one of the bigger events that's really cool to talk about is during COVID, the state, even though I'm in South Carolina, you wouldn't think they'd care out here. They did. They shut down all the extra events, meaning all the proms. So I saw one of the moms on Facebook at my alma mater, Travelers Rest High School, talking about they were going to do their own event. They were going to fund their own prom. They're looking for a venue, yada, yada, yada. So I thought, all right, well, that'd be a pretty cool way to give back. Like maybe we could rent the space, we rent a DJ, we get some door prizes, whatever. We committed like 5 grand or whatever to do it. So I reached out, told them, and just like PTA moms would, they went on Facebook and they told the whole world that Cornerstone Construction is the greatest. They're funding our prom, all the things, right? Our phone did not stop ringing for weeks. School after school after school asking if we could help. So we ended up doing 12 proms, a dozen proms
Wow.
across the upstate. And it was super cool. The impact we were able to make on the kids. We know we'll end up getting some employees out of those kids that are going to come to work for us in the future. But the best part, man, the best part was just seeing our team see that it's real. Like we talk about the common mission, we talk about giving back to the community, but they got to see it. They got to be a part of it. They got to feel it and experience it because they were out there in their tuxes. They brought their wives, they brought their husbands, and they danced. They did the limbo. They competed against the kids. Like we had a good time. And so that was so cool to see the team actually realize that what we're doing is bigger than just money. It's not just commission going into their bank account. It's not just money coming into my bank account. It's about making a difference through the company. So,
Love that.
for anybody watching, just figure out what your common mission is. It might be digging wells in Africa. It might be
Right.
working with homeless people. It might be helping abused women. Like, just figure out what that thing is.
That's awesome. Excuse me, Hunter, how can be dang. How can
How
people get a hold of you?
I didn't mean to get you choked up there,
Right.
man.
There you
I
go. You're
know.
all choked up, Hunter. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm pretty dormant on social. I use Facebook some. I'll post on there once or twice a week. I don't really use Instagram or LinkedIn or anything else, but I'm on Facebook. You can find me just Hunter Ballew on there. I do have RepCard. That's our app. It's kind of like a digital business card that evolved into more with a funnel builder and canvassing app. There's more information about me on there. I've been giving away. I bought a couple thousand copies of my book to give away. So if anybody reaches out to me from the show and says they're from the show, I'll give the first 10 a free copy. I'll ship somebody a free
Awesome.
copy.
That'd be
Super
great.
fantastic. How can people find out about the next RoofCon?
The next RoofCon, just go to roofcon.com. If you're not a roofer and you'd like to experience the retreat, just go to
Perfect.
therevolt.com/X and you'll see all about the retreat. And again, if you tell us you're from this, the first three, I'll just waive the $2,500 fee and
Oh,
for the first three
wow.
that reach out. Yeah.
Holy smokes. All right, everybody. Make sure you jump on that. You definitely want to
Can
check it out. Yeah,
I?
you can do it. Yes. Man, what an awesome treat to have you on, Hunter.
Yeah.
Lacey and I are so appreciative of you for sharing your heart and soul, your passion, your inspiration
Mission.
with everyone. You truly did make an impact. So we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. You're the best.
Appreciate y'all having me. See ya.
All right, everybody. That's it for this week. Be sure to join us next week for a brand new edition of the None of Your Business podcast.